Welcome to the Passive House podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your technical questions answered, and contribute to the community forum. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our construction, tech, or weekly Global Passive House Showcase webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Passive House podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler-Welsh, and this week I'm coming to you from Adelaide in Australia.
Yes, and Adelaide in Australia has a very weird sense of time. Your time zone is very strange.
It does. I want to be held accountable for that. I just grew up here, so I didn't impact the half-hour time zone.
Okay, fine.
South Australia and the Eastern
It's
States.
so bizarre. So it's like 6:34 a.m. for you and 2:06 p.m. for me. Very strange. Anyway, I'm Zack Semke.
Yeah,
I'm in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, well, it's cool. It's cool to make this work. I've travelled back to Adelaide, where I grew up, and people often think that I'm coming to a warm place when I come to Australia, but of course they have winter. They have winter here, and they also have an interesting housing stock. And the house that I grew up in is not particularly warm in the summer, in the winter time. It's way too hot in the summertime. It's basically a double brick cavity with no wall insulation and a flat metal roof. So it's kind of like a brick tent instead of a wooden tent that I live in New Zealand.
Nice. Yeah. Or I guess a pizza oven a little bit in the summer, it sounds like.
Yeah. So there's some challenges, but there are some. I have visited some. There's a couple of passive houses in South Australia, and there's some a small but growing fraternity of designers and some very passionate people here. Jackson Dingley, who I have interviewed before, has got a great showroom, and there are some really cool things happening in this space. But we're going to talk about something more closer to you this week, and another great building that you visited. So really keen to get into that, but let's do a quick shout out to our sponsors.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything we do at Passive House Accelerator, including the Passive House podcast, comes thanks to our sponsors who underwrite it all. So big thank you to our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxt Ingwe Architects, Glavel Foam Glass Gravel, Minutair All-in-One HVAC and Dehumidification Units, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, Rockwool North America, Stokorp, and Zola Windows. Thanks to our champion sponsors, Icon Windows and Doors and Proseco. And thank you to our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority.
Very cool. All right. Well, tell us a bit about your interviewee. I was going to say guest, but it felt more like you were the guest.
I was the guest, definitely.
On the building site. Tell us about the building and who you were talking with.
Yeah. So, a couple of weeks ago, I had the chance to spend some time in Boston, and Beverly Craig of Mass CEC, who is one of the major forces behind all of the amazing policy developments that have happened in Boston and Massachusetts, helped arrange some tours and connected me with Michelle Apigian, who I know from her previous appearances at Passive House Accelerator and also at FIAS conferences. She is a leading practitioner and designer of Passive House work in the Boston area. And there's this explosion of work happening. So as you'll hear, she's got, a lot of work going on right now of major multifamily buildings. she showed me around the Cambridge Finch project, which was one of the first big affordable housing passive house projects that happened in Massachusetts. It also was very close to somewhere that I lived very close to that area for about 3 years when I was in grad school in Cambridge. So it was fun to walk around Fresh Pond and check out that beautiful spot before the tour. Michelle is an associate principal at Icon Architecture. They've got a lot of passive house work going on, and she is behind it all in one capacity or another. She received her BA from Dartmouth and master's in architecture and city planning from MIT. And she is a rock star of passive house practice in North America. So I hope you enjoy my interview with Michelle and this little audio tour of Finch, Cambridge. So I have Michelle Apigian, Associate Principal at Icon Architecture here, and we are standing in the Cambridge Finch Multifamily Passive House project. Really exciting to be here, and welcome to the Passive House podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So Michelle, could you start by introducing yourself briefly, and then also this awesome project?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm Michelle Apigian. I've been with Icon Architecture for 21 years now, I believe, since I was a baby. And I started our sustainability committee there maybe 6 or 7 years ago with my colleague Gabby Aikenson, who has been instrumental in all of our passive house work. We now have 5 CPHCs at the office, and I'm personally really focused on the affordable housing side of the equation. So the Mass CEC grant that initially was so critical to instigating what I think is officially a movement now in Massachusetts, and then was fundamental to getting the Mass Save program to offer its incentives. So this project took advantage of the Mass CEC incentives, which was great, as did our Harbor Village project in Gloucester. There were 8 funded. Now the Mass Save program is out there promoting multifamily housing for affordable and the market. And so we're seeing a lot of market rate developers start to come in and ask these questions. What could we do? What's achievable? In part because we've also got some really strong community advocacy that's pushing like no building permit unless you make some serious commitments about energy and resilience, which is fun.
It's so exciting to see what's happening in Massachusetts. And I got a chance to tour around with Bev Craig of Mass CEC a couple of days ago, and we visited the Gloucester project that you designed. And so it's really great to see, on the ground, these examples of awesome work. Can you tell us a little, just like, what is Cambridge Finch? It's affordable housing. How many units?
Sure.
Yeah. Just kind of
So it's
basics.
98 units of affordable family housing. So there are a lot of 2 bedrooms and a good deal of 3 bedrooms in this building, which I mentioned because that density matters.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of big units, and there are a lot of kids in this building, as you can definitely see when you go to the garage and look at all the awesome bikes in our storage area. It is HRI is the owner and developer. Long time nonprofit in the affordable housing in Cambridge in particular, and an owner of many, many projects. And they are also leading the charge in terms of sustainability, have been for decades. So this for them was kind of just the next natural step. They've tried a lot of things before with some success. They've had solar, they've tried SIPS panels. They're always pushing for more.
Right.
So they took the leap with us, knowing that it would be a jump, but that we wanted to try to get there together. And we had a great builder on board, I will say as well, NEI, who we both worked with extensively, and they were with us from the get-go. So we could test wall assembly options, insulation types, et cetera, and try to really figure out how to dial in the cost. It is 6 stories over a open air garage. All the residential units are uplifted well out of the 2070 floodplain, as is the lobby, but just barely at the lobby. And of course, accessibility is important. And on the top floor, which we'll go check out, there is a pretty extensive amount of community space. And we located it on the top floor where everyone would have the benefit of the view of Fresh Pond. So even the laundry is right there. So if someone's doing laundry and someone wants to be studying in the community space or one of the study nooks, everyone kind of can benefit from that rather than the 3 units that happen to face the pond. We've also got a 105 kW PV array on the roof, which offsets, we think, and obviously time will tell more, 20 to 25% of the load. And all the systems are central. So we've got central ERV for the whole building with a couple of unique ones in the spaces that are outside the envelope. Central heating and cooling with VRF heat pump and fewer condensers, which allows for that big array on the roof. And then gas for central hot water, which is the nut that we keep trying to crack and we keep testing on lots of projects.
Right.
Harbor Village, we also went with a gas central hot water system. We are definitely beginning to test heat pump technology and try to figure out how to right size it, how to combine it, how to do it in a way that doesn't take up so much space. And I know there's a great new Mitsubishi product that's coming into the market that we are actively looking at right now.
Nice. Yeah, it seems to be the key challenge for so many projects is the domestic hot water.
Right.
I'm really excited and eager to start with the tour. Before we get into the tour, could you share why you think Passive House is a good fit for affordable housing?
So it's a perfect fit for affordable housing. Number one, they're long-term owners, generally speaking. So the energy usage of the building and the implications has a direct impact on their bottom line. So if the building is using less energy, the owner is spending less energy every month, every year. It's also, all these nonprofits are mission driven. They want to have high quality places for people to build their lives and be safe and comfortable. And so, having not only is it low energy, but these buildings are so comfortable. They're not drafty, they're quiet. It's amazing what happens when you open a window and you face out on the major street and you realize how much noise there really is out there, but you don't hear that. So, it just really, it hits on all cylinders. I think one of the reasons the market has had a harder time making the decision to go there is primarily because they're not generally long-term owners. Yeah. Right.
So you have the benefit of the long-term savings that the upfront investment brings.
Right. Yeah. And I think the central, again, because it's long-term owners, and often, frankly, there's an appetite for paying, if not all, then a good portion of the utility bills, typically hot water, but often even some of our projects, the owner is paying for heating and cooling. And that lends itself to central systems, and central systems are more efficient for the scale of what we're talking about. Individual systems are usually oversized for what we really need in any of our units, particularly on the heating cooling side of the equation. So being able to couple it and make the VRF approach allows you to, be heating and cooling simultaneously on opposite sides of the building, which is definitely something that we have here with long east and west facing facades. 6 residential stories on top of the garage, which means it's 2 levels of podium, which added to the complexity considerably. I don't recommend that, but that's what we've got, which meant steel coming up from the garage all the way up through the first floor residential, which was not ideal. And this is a sort of an extra height level. So the lobby is sunk into what is the garage space. If you go down that stairs, you go into a normal height garage. If you go up the stairs, you get into the first residential level. And part of that was because we are in a floodplain, and Cambridge takes the resiliency in general pretty seriously, which is great. Fresh Pond is right across the street. It's a really significant reservoir in the community, and all of this used to be pond probably back in the day. When rains and storms events happen, it's not coastal flooding, it's flooding from, I don't know, the other water bodies that are all around us. So even the lobby is above the 2070 flood elevation, but the residences, we didn't want even close to this because I'm sure it's only going to get higher over time. But we didn't mind the garage getting wet from time to time. And so the lobby was kept outside the passive house boundary for a bunch of reasons. We're doing less of that these days, partly because FIAS really encourages more rather than less, partly because we also discovered that it's really complicated the more transitions you've got, right? So we knew a lot of people would be moving in over periods of time, doors would be held open, events might be happening down here, and that the overall conditioning of the space probably had a different profile than the residential levels. And so we kept it out on purpose, which means that that's a passive house door and that's a passive house door. So when you get into the elevator vestibule, you are officially in. But that means that, the air barrier transitions to this inside face of wall, transitions to that wall plane, transitioning underneath that stair. I think we can all see that was really, really complicated.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yet we got there. And of course, when we were blower door testing, one of the biggest points of weakness was right here.
Sure.
The good news was you could tell that the rest of the building was quite tight, but they could see air moving right down here. So we spent a good deal of time troubleshooting toward the very end, but it was nice that it was all in one concealed space, really, and not all over the building. Interestingly, at Harbor Village in Gloucester, we had a similar weak point and internal to external air barrier transitions, and getting that right sequentially with the different trades and all of that was a real challenge there too. And so we had the same thing where we tested, we were getting tighter, things were good, and then we finally got to a place where they could hear a whistling sound somewhere in the building, and they basically were just sort of chasing the sound, and it turned out one window had come in accidentally without one gasket on one particular edge. I think it was the bottom. And they could hear the wind moving through that gasket. And so we were able, of course, get that fixed. But similarly, it was right around the lobby where we had these tricky transitions where we found that we were kind of chasing our tails a little bit. Thankfully, also got there. Currently, we have 5 passive house projects under construction, one of which is not affordable, and another, I don't know, maybe 12, 15 in design, which is pretty unbelievable.
And do you have your hand in each one of those projects?
No. The first one was me, Distillery. The second one was this one, me and Gabby. Gabby also got certified. We now have 5 CPHCs in the office. She got certified several years back, and having her on this was instrumental, much more complicated than the first one, much bigger, and a builder who, well, like so many, hadn't done it before.
Right.
And several of the ones that are under construction now, and she also worked with me on the Harbor Village project. Now, though, we're at a place where we're trying to understand how to kind of broadly oversee and make sure all of our teams have the skills, even though they don't all have a CPHC on the project, because we don't have enough of us to go around yet.
Yeah.
So she's our sustainability director, and we're kind of keeping our eye on every project and creating a whole process for touch points along the way to evaluate, where's the envelope, what's in, what's out, what's the right strategy. We're largely doing the preliminary WFI feasibility studies that the Mass Save program sponsors, I guess we can say. It's part of their full incentive package of $3,000 a unit also includes up to $5,000 for the WFI feasibility study, which they want to see early, like in schematic design, which would make sense. Yeah. And then another up to $20,000 for energy modeling more broadly. We don't like to have our hand in the full throttle energy model. It feels very in the weeds and very mechanically minded, and we don't have all that. But we love being able to do the early stage stuff just to test some overall assumptions about insulation values, about where we're struggling with heating, cooling, et cetera. Get an overall sense of what the PV array might need to look like. And so doing that is helpful too, because we're doing it for all of our projects. So we're getting to see what seems to be pretty comparable across the board, what seems to be a bigger challenge. Some sites are really wooded and we're having like no cooling issue, and we're like, that's great, Other sites are totally oriented wrong, like this one, and high cooling challenges. So, and then we're having sort of weekly check-ins for all the projects in CA. We have a real protocol that we've developed around how to walk our teams through CA, meaning the contractor team. Like, when do we have touch points on what? Let's pull out those compartmentalization sheets. Let's evaluate what details we're going to be hitting next, which trades are involved. Let's get on the phone. Let's talk about that before we do it. And almost always we discover that we envisioned it in a different way than it's going to play out in real life, right? Either one trade is actually supposed to come in later, and we thought that we could do that first, or so then we can work to rethink the detail before we've already baked in something that we then have to fix, right? That's what we're trying to avoid. So it has been, it is nerve-wracking not to be touching everything in the same level, but at the same time, we're continuing to educate, and I think everybody in our office now knows what EUI is and understands the importance of airtightness, and so I think we're getting there. Maybe we take the elevator up to the top floor. We can check out all the community spaces and the view. So this is our kind of amenity floor. From there back is all residents, just like the floors below. But on the top floor, from a zoning perspective, we actually needed to pull back the front of the building and maintain a certain sight line. And so that meant that this whole section inherently was different. We didn't have the depth that we had for the units below. And so it kind of lent itself to being something different entirely. And Jane, the owner, was delighted to think about kind of co-locating all this stuff and making it really more of a hub for the building. Yeah, which sometime post-COVID will actually be so. These are study nooks. They call them the nests. There's a whole awesome branding that we did not do. Actually, Bergmeyer did that, related to Fresh Pond. The Finch came from that, and then the signage, it does the same. But this room...
The Finch who live at Fresh Pond.
The Finch who live at Fresh Pond. Exactly. Yeah, nice. Exactly. So this room is intended to be sort of a more low-key thing. Folks could sit, and just bring their laptops in here, relax, obviously have the study nooks. These, I understand, are one of the few spaces that have been heavily used, especially through COVID, when everyone was schooling from home and working from home, and they sign up for a time slot. And then in here, we've got a kitchen and kind of a larger space, which is intended to really allow for, events for folks in the building, but also folks to come in and learn about cooking, teach about cooking, use the roof deck to, grow some vegetables, grow some herbs, and really kind of the idea is that you could throw the doors open and this could become a whole educational space and also help people eat better and save money.
These are your passive house stores here.
That is our passive house store right there. This is outside for similar reasons as the lobby, because this could have 30 people in it, could have no one in it, as has been the case for way too long. The roof deck, I guess we should definitely head out and have a quick look at that. But I see that the planters are planted, which is exciting. Ooh, see? We've got tomatoes, basil. Awesome. So you can actually almost see, in the winter, you can fully see the reservoir because these trees are almost all deciduous. And you can hear the sound of the street, right, from up here. Although these doors are not passive house level doors, all the glazing is still triple glazed. And we didn't modify the exterior wall assembly in any way just because it was in or out. That's continuous. And we use Sega for that, and I will tell you that I will only use them if I can going forward. It is so good to work with. And we had a mock-up. I will not say what other product we had. We had another product that had been bought out by the contractor, and we went to do the window mock-up on a true mock-up. And we were standing there for hours watching them and the tape couldn't be applied without applying some primer or some kind of adhesive element behind it. The actual air barrier itself needed to have a primer on the wood behind it in order for it to have the adhesion that they felt comfortable with. And at a point, our CPHC took me aside and was like, Michelle, this is so not going to work at this scale, like maybe on a single family house, but not. And so I called Ken at SIGA and said, Ken, this was like a Friday. And I was like, we're under construction and I need you to get some pricing into NEI right away. And it's gotta come in at a good number. And then I called NEI and said, I'm really sorry, but we're not gonna be able to use the air barrier. You're gonna have to switch horses. Yeah. And it actually came in at a savings, small credit, and so simple. Like the folks in the field love it. The tapes go on easy. They're not thick, so they can really get into the corners, and their reps are great about coming out and making sure everyone understands how to make sure the adhesion is strong and do it in a sequence that's going to make sense. So that was critical.
John, your verifier, right? Is it John?
John.
Yeah.
Rodenheiser, exactly.
We just did a component spotlight with Ken SIGA of SIGA
on
Thursday, and he was talking about this project.
Yep.
And John had quite a nice testimonial that.
Yeah, John was definitely one of the people that was like, "This is insane. What are you doing?"
Was this the first passive house at this scale? It was certainly one of the first.
Our first was the distillery, which is 27 units.
Yeah.
So not as big, but getting into larger multifamily. It was also market rate, so it had all individual systems, except for water. Hot water was still gas, actually.
Yeah.
So individual Zender ERVs in every unit and individual heat pumps in every unit. And we cut our teeth on that for sure.
Yeah.
And that is kind of this project was, HRI issued an RFP. And so we were one of several to respond to it. And we pitched the passive house approach to them saying, whether or not you want to certify, we would love to bring that mindset to the table. And initially, actually, Jane was not prepared to certify, just the added costs, the added concerns around what happens if you don't succeed, all of that.
Yeah.
So again, the Mass CEC incentives came into play, and Beverly used to work for HRI, actually.
Oh, okay.
And so, and in fact, was working with HRI when we started this project.
Beverly Craig of Mass CEC.
Yeah. And I mean, what she has done is off the hook amazing.
I know.
And it just keeps going. She just keeps finding more. Yeah. Now it's the trades, and now it's retrofits, and it just keeps, it's awesome. So we applied, even though we were under construction, we applied for the incentives, and we were awarded them, but we couldn't take advantage of the full 4,000 because we were already under construction. So I think Jane was able to get half of them maybe.
Right.
And that kind of made it work. And then we sort of said, okay, now we need real energy modeling, not just our initial feasibility stuff.
Yeah.
So we got the team together and everyone just kind of rolled with it. And I kept waiting for the pricing to come back saying, you're going to have to shave something here. But it never got there. We started with exterior insulation, and we started with thermally broken clips. And because you can't have like foam at this scale, so you needed rock wool. We just started with what we thought we needed and wanted, and we never had to get rid of it.
Right.
And HRI really would have sacrificed aesthetics somewhere first, right? They were totally on board for performance, which is great.
It is great. What's going on in Massachusetts is really remarkable. When thinking about the development of passive house in North America, there was initially these kind of scattering. I don't know what the right word is of single family passive house projects in like New England and the Pacific Northwest. And then Vancouver, BC just took off.
Right, and their code even adopted it, right?
Right,
Exactly.
They got a step code, and that's influencing British Columbia, and now and it's happening in Toronto. And so there's a lot of exciting stuff that's been going on in Canada. Then there was that Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency with the Litex, and so there's this little kind of mini explosion of multifamily, and then New York. But now Massachusetts is really turning heads.
Yeah,
and this was one of the first really significant projects.
Right.
And you mentioned that you were doing a tour after tour of 2 dozen, 3 dozen practitioners and owners and developers who were checking this out. So what do you see going on in terms of the AEC industry and coming up to speed? I mean, now that scale is starting to happen, I'm sure there's a combination of signs of real progress and then probably some strain because it's moving so fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think, generally speaking, I think the trend is supremely exciting and positive. There is no question when we talk about how many projects we have in design and under construction in our office, and, not everyone in our office has the same level of knowledge or experience. There's no question we don't want to fail, right? We want every project to be successful, and we've certainly heard of a few that couldn't pass that blower door at the end. So that's, I think, the nerve-wracking part is trying to make sure that people understand where the tricky points are so that we won't fail collectively. And I say we because I talk a lot, I know you've heard it, about the builder as our partner and the craft of building being so fundamental. And I actually think the Passive House movement is reinvigorating the construction industry. So I think the architecture side of the equation, we've been getting on board. I can't imagine many big firms in Boston at this point that aren't paying attention to Passive House. I think it's highly improbable. And that's probably true in many places all over the country. The builders don't have the experience, and they're the ones pricing it. So if you get a huge sticker shock, then you might decide not to pursue it, which definitely has happened on a few projects that we've pursued. And so having the building industry itself really understand how to price it and what it is important. And when we started this project, Gabby and I developed these signs that were a blue balloon with the Sega printed all over it, and all the tools that might poke holes in a balloon all smattered all around. And we were like, no holes in our balloon, right? I don't think that made any difference at all, but for us, it was like, we've got to somehow let everybody on site know that this is important. And what I've come since to feel is that it isn't about, this is a passive house, everybody, take it seriously. It's more about, you do the air barrier and you know just how to do that right if you're given the right tools and the right, oversight. That's all we want. We want you to just do your job well. Mm-hmm. Same for the, window installation, same for the carpentry, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really more about acknowledging the value of what all of the trades offer. Every trade matters. The electrician matters because they're putting holes in the wall too. And they could be just right sized, or they could be, I could stick my hand through it. HVAC matters hugely because the tightness of the ductwork is fundamental and really hard to do well. And so I think valuing the trades is sort of out there now. And we're certainly seeing, and Mass CEC is certainly pushing for more trades training in general. How do we help bring folks up to speed? And how do we do that in a way that actually helps address equity issues too, bringing more diversity into the trades, helping people understand how to be part of the future green economy, the current green economy, not, some legacy mindset about installing gas all over the place. So we're seeing really cool programs, Roxbury Community College and other places that are all working on this issue. And I think when people feel valued, they'll do a better job. And then they don't see the construction industry as a dead end, right? They see it as a real opportunity.
Fantastic. Well, should we take a look at a unit?
Yes.
All right, let's do it.
You said we're going to go to the fourth floor then?
Fourth, yep.
Oh, see, it's a heavy passive house door.
Passive house door.
We can just take the stairs. You'll also see there's a lot that's going on in this building that has nothing to do with passive house and a lot to do with other goals like general wellness, biophilic design. It's also Fitwel certified. It's also Enterprise Green certified. So a lot of broader goals. So you'll see every floor, for example, has a different color theme on the walls, which was a wayfinding idea. I didn't fully appreciate just how valuable it would be until we started punch listing the building, and I would lose complete track of what floor I was on, but I always knew with the colors, right?
I'm on the red floor.
Exactly. And you might have noticed there's a heat pump, one heat pump in each corridor.
Cool.
So the corridors have their own heating and cooling system. So yeah, this is a pretty typical one bedroom. One of the key things that we have learned to do is to put our fan coil closet abutting the bedroom and the living room so that it can intake on the face and deliver on the face and deliver also into the bedroom. So you do not have to go up into the rated assembly and back down, which adds dampers and cost. So we avoid ductwork, and it's literally, you'll see it's got its two openings here, and it's got its opening in the bedroom. And we find that saves a lot of cost. Obviously, when you get to a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, then you have to duct. You've got to get up into the assembly to get over, but at least you're saving a little bit. Another piece of the equation is the engineers, of course. When you work with engineers, as we are now, many engineers who haven't done it before, and you get their first drawings, they'll be delivering heating and cooling all over the unit, and we'll remind them, no, we really don't need to do that anymore. We got our ventilation, and you can keep it simple. And otherwise, it's not, there's nothing particularly unique. No carpet. That's definitely kind of the healthy homes approach. And
no, they're really nice.
Yeah, let's go down and maybe just check out the garage a little bit. You can actually take the stair right here.
Yeah.
And you'll get to see another one of our least favorite tricky conditions, I guess I should say. The reason this stair is out of the envelope at this point is because it's immediately abutting the open air garage. And as is so often the case, right, we've got a stair coming down to the garage. We've got to have a clear drive lane. We can't swing out. We don't have room for a vestibule, like just goes on and on. So this angle, and you can kind of read it all the way up, underneath that is, I think, 4 inches of rigid insulation, or mineral wool rather. And the stairs are CMU, so there's also 4 inches outside. And of course the air barrier. And here, these are the types of places where, though we try to avoid spray foam, can come in really handy when you need it to be continuous and there's no great plane or way to get a clean surface to attach to.
All right, so here we are back in the lobby. We've gotten our tour. Michelle, thank you so much. I am so happy that you're doing the work you're doing. You're paving so many trails, or blazing so many trails for the community here and across North America, and it's really inspiring to see. So thank you.
You're very welcome. It really is a team effort, and the more we all learn together, the more we'll be able to do it without any effort at all, right? That's the hope.
You're here. All right. Thank you.
Awesome.
That was a great audio tour, Zack. I definitely felt like I was picturing the building as I was walking around it. Having not seen it, there are some great images online, but that was a really great chat about the project. Really great way to get an overview of the scale, but also some of the challenges. Everything from the choice to put mini splits in the hallways to keep those air conditioned, right through to the obvious challenges of domestic hot water for some of these the passive houses, and also the things like the wayfinding and the different colours in the hallways for such a large building. But what a great project! I just love the headline, the takeout comment for me was that Passive House is the obvious choice for public housing.
Indeed. And it's a great place. I mean, it's a great building. It is literally across the street from Fresh Pond, which is this very popular spot to walk around and play in Cambridge. And the combination of the residential units and then this public space upstairs, that I think listeners were able to kind of hear those spaces, and then the outdoor space. I mean, it's a great example of building a community, and this is going to be a clean, air infused, comfortable, low utility bill haven and of resiliency in Cambridge for decades. So such a great model.
It's definitely, it's the opposite of a slum. You think of a lot of people would jump to the idea of 90 plus apartments for affordable public housing not being something that they would want close by or in their neighborhood. But this is like a beautiful apartment building, and I would imagine quite desirable. And those, I mean, the house looks, the building looks amazing. But having those amenities, and as you said, already been a really popular space, that shared working space, and then to have an outdoor space on the top, and I think you're right. It's a great way of building a healthy community, not just building places to house people.
Yeah, it's an example of the just transition that people talk about with the clean energy transition, the transition to clean buildings. So in a couple of ways. So one of the ways is that it's providing affordable housing that has better indoor air quality than most of the listeners, unless they're lucky enough to be in a passive house, have in their living spaces. And it's really comfortable, and it's a great spot. All these great things about the building. The other thing that she talked about, and that she and Bev Craig from Mass CEC and others are working on, is the whole workforce development piece of things, and seeing that as an opportunity for climate justice, to provide opportunities for the trade in the trades, for these with these buildings, for people of color and low income people, and so there's, I think, a lot of great ideas and thinking and energy and policy making happening in Boston and in Massachusetts around realizing the promise of a just transition. And so it was really, that week there was super inspiring, from seeing this, massive glass wrapped, beautiful high-rise passive house, very high rent, amazing building of Winthrop Center, to seeing this, beautiful affordable housing project in Cambridge, and everything in between. There's just, it's happening at so many different levels.
Yeah. And a couple of passive house specific challenges that were discussed are like the consideration of where the envelope was, and that was another great thing about going through your tours. You're commenting on the passive house doors through the different zones, and then where Michelle was pointing out, when you were actually going outside of the envelope to get down to the garage, and the reason for those decisions, I think is a really good example of how those decisions get made at the design phase to define where the envelope's going to be, and what that means for the construction and the layout of the building. Really interesting story about the air tightness testing, and it just is such a great reminder of the value of air tightness testing beyond just passive house certification, is that it is was the only way to really quantify the quality control of the whole envelope. And I don't know of another way that would have identified at that stage that one window had a missing gasket. That possibly that might have arisen later on when a tenant complained about a draft, but to be able to identify things like that at that stage when something can be done about it is, that's a valuable reason to do an airtightness test alone, despite being a passive house building.
Yeah, so true. And it also felt like listening to Michelle talk was like hearing, we're hearing from one of the most experienced practitioners right now in passive house in North America and multifamily work.
Mm.
And it was like hearing the learning curve in almost real time, where she was discussing the decisions that they made at Finch Cambridge and also the project in Gloucester, about the lobby and whether it was inside or outside of the air barrier. And she's obviously, learning a lot of lessons from that and maybe rethinking for future projects, or, understanding kind of what the implications of those decisions are in a wholly different way. And also that the whole story of the switch from one product for the air barrier to the SIGA products and
doing a mock-up, the value of doing a mock-up on site and spending time getting frustrated on a test install that can then change the whole direction of the rest of the build.
Right. And there's this generosity that Michelle has, and I think a lot of people have in the passive house community, about sharing all these lessons, on tours and in presentations and things. And that's what gives me a lot of hope for the rapid evolution of practice in passive house. Therefore, that getting closer to closing the gap on the upfront cost from conventional construction, because we're hearing she's going to be helping dozens of other practitioners that have seen that project avoid some of the pitfalls that they had to navigate.
And by practitioners, she made the comment that this is starting to reinvigorate the building industry now. And I think you're right that Michelle is one of those people that's educating all of the builders. She mentioned the signs. It's just a small example, but in other ways, inducting a lot of the craftspeople and the tradespeople or the builders who come onto this site might be the first time they've come onto a passive house construction site, and it's a learning experience for them. And that's really valuable, because it's not just about getting more and more architects to know about the value of airtightness and the building envelope. It's about training builders on site, what that means for them when they're doing whatever they do to the building.
Yeah, and she is one of those architects that I think really values and understands the partnership that architects have with the trades as well.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that it's not uncommon, but I think that Michelle is able to articulate that and kind of teach about it and remind people about it in a unique way. It clearly comes from a very genuine place of like, this is truly a vitally important partnership that we've got here, guys. So we need to take it really seriously. It's good stuff.
Very nice. Well, great project and great interview. Thanks for organising that, and thanks also to Bev. I know that she, Beverly Craig, who helped organise a lot of those visits. A very busy time you had in Boston, which is awesome.
It was fun.
And I'm hoping to do. We don't have anything of that sort of scale, but really. Great to see a public housing project designed and being built to passive house in Auckland at the moment. So I'm hoping to catch up with some of the architects and people involved in that project soon, because it's some really cool stuff going on, and some good learning in this part of the world too. So hopefully a lot more of that to come. What else we've got coming up?
Yeah, well, we have at the Accelerator, we have on Passive House Accelerator Live, we've got a project showcase edition of the show happening this week. So that's Wednesday for us. And if you're in Australia or New Zealand, it'll be Thursday. And this is going to be focused on a project called Puerto Madero, an urban development on the outskirts of Cartagena, Colombia. And we'll be hearing from speakers Andrew Strauss and Enrique Bueno of Consinfra. And so we're going to be hearing about, some passive house in South America, which will be really fun. Right. And then on August 11th, we are working with the Green Building United on their new Gravity event. And this is something they've been doing annually now for several years. And it's focused on passive house delivery with affordable housing. So I'll be involved a little bit in the program. Lots of great speakers. Beverly Craig will be featured, as well as many others. So August 11th, it's going to be online, so you can catch it from Adelaide if you so desire. Just you'll have to do the time zone conversion. Good luck. Yeah,
you'll just have to be like half an hour different from everyone else.
So there's other stuff coming up. We'll include a link to our weekly roundup that has details about upcoming events in the show notes.
Yeah, make sure you sign up to newsletters and subscribe if you haven't already, so that you don't miss out on all that great stuff, because there's so much going on around the place. Hey, well, thank you, Zack. That's really, really cool. Great projects, and we look forward to hearing more. You're away for a couple of weeks now on a well-earned holiday. But we've got a plan for some other episodes lined up. So hopefully we'll still have a few in the feed in the coming weeks.
I can't wait to hear them. And Matthew, stay warm.
Will do. All right. Thanks, Zack. See you later.